Kenya the true land of Israel? Exploring a controversial theory. Throughout history, scholars and theologians have sought to uncover the true origins of ancient Israel. Most accounts place it firmly in the Middle East, but could they be mistaken? What if a radically different theory points to Kenya as the true biblical land of the Israelites? In this episode of Zile Tales, we take a closer look at a provocative claim, one that challenges widely accepted history. Using folklore, linguistic analysis, and the Bible itself, some researchers propose that Kenya might hold the key to Israel's true origins. But does the evidence support this bold assertion? Let's dive in. The Uganda scheme. In 1903, a little-known proposal was put forward by the British colonial government to offer land in Western Kenya to European Jews. This plan, called the Uganda scheme, was championed by Theodore Herzl, the founder of Zionism. At the time, British interest in East Africa made Kenya a viable candidate for Jewish settlement. Yet, after some deliberation, the plan was abandoned. The reasons cited included the dangerous wildlife, particularly lions, and the perceived threat of hostile local tribes like the Maasai. But is there more to this story? Could Kenya have been considered because of deeper historical or biblical significance? While this idea of resettling Jews in Kenya was ultimately rejected, it raises an intriguing question. Why Kenya? Was this simply colonial maneuvering, or was there something more at play? Some proponents of the theory we are exploring suggest that this wasn't just about finding land, but perhaps rediscovering lost connections to ancient Israel. Kenya folklore and the migration from Misri. Kenya is home to rich folklore, some of which tells of ancestral migrations from a land called Misri, the Swahili name for Egypt, or Mizraim in Hebrew. Could this be a clue to linking Kenyan tribes to the biblical Israelites? Historians typically tell us that the Bantu people, the largest ethnic group in Kenya, migrated from West Africa, passing through the Congo Basin, but some dispute this, claiming they came from Misri to settle in East Africa. Could these oral traditions offer a key to understanding the ancient origins, or are they simply folk memories that evolved over time? Folklore often contains kernels of truth, but it can also be exaggerated or altered through generations. While the idea of a connection to Egypt is fascinating, we must be cautious not to read too much into it without corroborating evidence from other sources. The Bible and linguistic connections. Another angle to consider is the Bible itself. Some researchers suggest that Hebrew shares linguistic similarities with Bantu languages spoken in Kenya. This theory rests on the notion that understanding ancient Hebrew requires thinking through an African linguistic lens. It's true that the languages evolve and share features across regions. Some similarities between Hebrew and Bantu words are striking, but language drift over centuries makes it difficult to prove direct links. Still, it's worth exploring whether certain words might have retained their original meanings or evolved in different directions. Proponents of this theory argue that words like K and C or W and B are interchangeable in both Hebrew and Bantu languages. This could suggest that the Israelites might have originated from, or at least passed through, this region. But without solid evidence, such claims remain speculative. Mapping biblical locations in Kenya. Another key argument for this theory is geography. Some claim that the locations described in the Bible, such as Jericho and Gilgal, correspond to places in Kenya, specifically Kericho and Gilgil. On the surface, these similarities are intriguing, but are they enough to make a definitive connection? Critics argue that names alone do not prove a historical link. They could simply be coincidences, or they might have been renamed in more recent history. It's always tempting to draw connections between ancient texts and modern locations, but you have to be very careful. Place names change over time, and even if there are similarities, it doesn't mean that these are the same places mentioned in the Bible. The cycles of history and land. One of the central themes in this theory is the idea that history repeats itself, and that land retains its character, like DNA. Some suggest that the rejection of the Uganda scheme mirrors the biblical story of the Israelites' first attempt to enter the Promised Land, where spies also returned with a negative report. Could the rejection of Kenya as a Jewish homeland be a sign that the true promised land was never intended to be found in the Middle East, but rather here in Africa? Or is this simply a case of history repeating itself in unexpected ways? It's possible to draw parallels between different periods in history, but you have to be cautious about ascribing meaning where there may be none. Human societies across the world have experienced similar patterns of migration and settlement. So, is Kenya the true land of Israel? The evidence we've explored offers some intriguing possibilities, but much of it remains speculative. Folklore, language, and geography all provide clues, but they're far from conclusive. The story is still evolving, and it will take more research, more debate, and more open minds to find the truth. What do you think? Could Kenya be the true Israel?